Thanks for joining David Shelsted and Neil Milner, our two special guests today. Okay, we're right at 1 p.m. And in the interest of respect for the people, which is a lean principle, I'm going to get started. So thank you everybody who have joined exactly on time, a little bit ahead of time. This is our inaugural Lean Construction series, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce two experts in the room. So we have Susan Reinhardt, and Susan is an architect from California and Colorado. And Susan excelled at managing complex projects with multiple stakeholders, ranging from, $1.5 million mountain library to $4 billion university in Saudi Arabia. So she has a lot of experience. And Susan provides coaching for facility owners, designers, and contractors on lean methods for building projects up to $1 billion, including tool install designs in new semiconductor fabrication plant, pharmaceutical facilities, large historical renovation projects, educational facilities, government, with international consulting experience in Switzerland, Kenya, and South Sudan. Susan is capable of working in any demanding environment. She remains passionate about helping owners, architects, engineers, and contractors employ lean production strategies that satisfy stakeholders on time and on budget, but not on holidays or weekends. She has taken a call once in a while when she's out on the slopes, but other than that, definitely not on weekends. Carla is an industrial engineer and improvement consultant with 25 years of multi-sector industry experience, including the past 8 years focused in construction and the built environment. She specializes in both strategic and tactical lean implementation. This includes supporting companies in lean integration, transformational journeys, facilitating kaizen events, and process optimization, as well as supporting lean project delivery implementations and coaching frontline performance. With her career originating in manufacturing with Procter Gamble Manufacturing, Carla gained specialization in the application of productivity and operational excellence techniques, including lean thinking, Six Sigma, theory of constraints, systems thinking. At present, Carla is particularly inspired to fuel the design and construction movement in Canada. So Carla is based out of Alberta, and Susan is based out of Denver. So join us in welcoming an international team of experts for the Lean Construction Series webinar. And one of our principles and values here at PACE. So the first thing is, thank you so much for everyone who has taken precious time out of their day. We have a lot of companies represented here, and by the representation, you can see that lean construction is absolutely a very important topic, but a very underspoken about topic. So just to set expectations today, we're going to be, this is the starting of a series, and we're going to be kicking it off with a introduction to lean. So we're not expecting everyone in the room to be experts. We do have some fabulous experts in the room, but we're not expecting everyone to be experts. We're looking to share a bit of knowledge, and really what we're looking to do is listen. And the way in which we listen is through the Mentimeter survey. So Sachin from our team has been posting the Mentimeter survey link in the chat. And if you're able to click on that chat right now, we have, I know a few people have found their way into it. There's an interesting question coming up in the chat around if you could live anywhere in the world where would it be? And I just realized I probably shouldn't have put a map there because I only know where India is and where Canada is. So I probably shouldn't have put the map there. So I'm going to, I don't know what part of my screen you guys can see right now, Carla and Susan. Like, what are you seeing right now on my screen?
Introduction slide.
Okay.
And I cannot manipulate the Menti survey, just to let you know. So I can't move anything when I click the link. And someone else has said that as well. So.
Oh, like on the pin. This is a new question type from Menti. So it's possible, it's like in beta mode, right? So it's possible that like Menti has not quite figured it out because we don't have the right, the correct something, right? The correct browser or something related to it. So let's move on to the next question, which I'm certain that everybody can participate on the next question. So the next question is, what is the one thing you would like to gain out of today's presentation? So we're looking to better understand what is the one thing you'd like to gain out of today's presentation. Let me go there and change it. Go to my next question. Whew. Do you guys see the next question on your chat, or are you guys still seeing if you could be anywhere in the world? There you go. So what's the one thing you would like to take away from today? That should be popping up on your phones. And I'm going to stop the sharing of the introduction and I'm going to share the live screen. So this is the question you should be seeing. A better understanding of lean, what it looks like to apply lean in the design and construction industry, the benefits of using lean in construction, best practices for applying lean principles on a large scale, enhanced awareness of lean principles, what could accelerate adoption of lean? That's a really good one. It's a brilliant question. I like the question around adoption. Ways to integrate it into your company. That's excellent. Case studies, not sure yet, eager to learn. That's good. That's always good. Similarities, differences. I think it should be scrolling at some point between lean in construction versus Toyota production system. So what do you guys think, Carla and Susan? Are you guys up for the challenge? Expectation setting? Is this something you're going? Is this about tools or is this about people? So maybe that's a question we can ask before we get Carla to kick things off. Carla and Susan, what do you guys do? Are you going to talk about tools or people? What are we talking about here?
I think we're going to explain all of that and give proper context. So we're in, ready to start.
Ready to go?
Ready to go.
Okay, awesome. So Carla, I will get you to take it away. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, let's make sure I can get sharing to happen here.
Sounds great. I have stopped sharing my screen and I will stop sharing I'll mute myself and stop my video.
All right. So we can see the intro screen here. Susan, somebody let me know, or Neha?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, right on. So first of all, I'm really excited to be a part of this conversation today. I'm always interested in expanding the conversation around lean construction. I would like to openly say something that Neha has shared, that Susan and I are experts. And I would just like to personally state that I don't believe there are experts. I believe that we are all on a journey of some kind, and I believe myself to be in a lean journey for the last 25 years. So I believe I'm still learning, and I have a lot more that I'm going to continue to learn and advance myself in. So I don't actually view myself as an expert. Having said that, I have been 25 years in lean and the last 8 in lean construction. So my job is to kick off this conversation that Susan and I are going to have with you as an audience. And it would be remiss if I didn't start with the origin of lean. And so many people know that lean comes from the manufacturing environment and connect that to Toyota. And so that's where we're going to start. Toyota is definitely the birthplace of the term lean. And post-World War II, as Toyota was rebuilding and steel was scarce and talent was, and people were also rebuilding, there were some talented Japanese engineers and folks that came together to figure out what's the best way that we could utilize all our resources and delight our customers. And what was contributing to that was some inspiration and motivation along the way, not only from continuing on with what Ford and the automotive industry was already doing, but taking inspiration from textile industry and loom, the factory that was also an inspiration there, as well as a grocery chain as the grocery industry was transforming at that time. And at the center of it all was actually quality, was talent called, everyone has likely heard of Deming. And so the Deming influence was a huge part of this as well. So there was some really significant successes that were seen around the 70s, and people started going over to study Toyota. And around the 80s, there was a scientist team from MIT that came over and decided to give it a name. All these things that are going on in Toyota, the perfect quality, the zero recalls, all of the great systems they were seeing were just the right products and just the right tools at just the right time. This is my mouse going down the line like a car. All these great things were happening. So they decided to call it lean. So that is really the terminology. When we say lean, that's what we're talking about. However, our English connotation, actually meaning of the word, gets in the way. And so lean is actually not about being skinny. It's not about we're so lean, stretched so tight already. We're actually talking about a pronoun, about a collection of things, a business system that was very, very high performance and had an optimal execution of all the processes coming together in synchronicity. And so it was achieving an operational excellence. And so just like as an athlete, you wouldn't necessarily want to get skinny, you'd want to have high performance muscle. And that's what this lean thing is really all about. And that's the origin of it. And that's the Toyota way. So good lean, regardless of which industry, regardless of which sector, because lean has been applied since manufacturing with successes and failures. It's been applied in every industry and sector with success. And when good lean happens, it is because we're really thinking about it this way, and it results in better, faster, cheaper, safer, and sustainable. It doesn't mean we start trying to figure out how to make it cheaper. We start in a different place. We start with value. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So that's the birth and origin of the term lean. Now, the construction industry has really embraced the fundamental principles in lean production and that sort of thing. But it would be inaccurate to assume that lean construction is just lean manufacturing slapped onto this industry. This really has evolved in a very I'll say customized way, thanks to the individuals that I've got listed here, especially Glenn Ballard and Greg Howell, but there are many others that have been a part of evolving this industry. I think one who's on the line today even, has been a part of evolving this industry to help ensure that we're finding better ways of building, of handling things in our built environment, of building our projects. And so around 1997, Glenn and Greg established the Lean Construction Institute as a place to house, grow, develop, share, benchmark best practices associated with this to try to explore how can we leverage this production, the efficiencies of a production environment into our world, our more complex world. And they developed some new techniques, worked in concert with Berkeley, And it's evolved and grown, and it's really advanced. There's many that have joined this community globally. Canada was only 10th in the line to join the community, but there's many others that continue to. And the understanding that is unfolding now is that this is really revolutionizing our industry practice. It's influencing contract models, and it's part of what is influenced what's termed IPD, or integrated project delivery. More collaborative ways that we can reduce barriers from contracts and really support the environment to allow lean operating principles to thrive. It's very customer focused. It's about continuous improvement, and it's about helping innovation come alive. So it integrates with all other strategies and enables technology adoption, and above and beyond all else, it is about engaging people. So it truly is transforming the built environment, and that's the lean construction movement that is in play today. The paradigm that these talented gentlemen started with was really looking at the triangle of time, cost, and quality. We often have said in the past, and I still hear it today, we can only have 2 out of 3. Pick 2 out of 3. That's all you can have. And in actual fact, that's not what lean construction is about. It's about recognizing that there is a sweet spot, a value that is originating from the customer's perspective, and we need to hit that target value. We need to hit that target value consistently. And we may not know it right off the bat. It needs to unfold or be revealed through a series of processes that are part of design that Susan will touch on. But that target value is what we really should be focused on in our entire chain of activities in construction. And in actual fact, today, we want to pick all 5, including safety and sustainability is very big in the conversation. So our job in lean construction, much like lean origin, is to start with value from the customer's perspective and ensure that that's translated through the entire chain of activity that's going on. And so that's the premise behind lean construction, is that we're about value from the customer and end user's perspective. And we understand that we're all in this connected chain, all focused on this end use. Now, this is about supply chain execution ultimately. And it requires, there's a lot of different players, a lot of different stakeholders, a lot of moving pieces and parts. So I like to think about it as an analogy of a Rubik's Cube, because it has a ton of complexity. And frankly, in today's world, there's more and more complexity that is increasing all the time. And so this intricate planning that's needed to synchronize and coordinate and collaborate on all these activities is pretty involved. And so as we look at this execution, we want to get from the mixed up Rubik's Cube on the left to the completed one on the right. But there's multiple players involved and multiple hands on the cube. And that's where I think our industry really struggles. And our challenge is that we've got silos. We've got silos upon silos and nested silos inside those. We have contracts and different contractual customer-based relationships that are all strung together, that should be all strung together to ultimately deliver a project. But somehow in the quest for efficiency, in really ensuring that each of us is efficient in our own teams, in our own businesses, we have inconsistencies and waste and rework and iterations that are happening as we toss something over the wall to the next party in the next silo, and they toss something over the wall, and there's waiting, and there's all kinds of issues that are a part of the natural challenges of our traditional construction environment. Lean construction is trying to help with that, and that's really what the revolutionizing is that's going on. As those that are really focused on productivity and efficiency, this is a picture that we're not going to spend a lot of time on, although we could. This is the picture of productivity over time for our industry. And our red line is across the bottom there. It has been shown that our industry is not advancing in productivity as a whole as much as the other industries are. So we're not getting better at how we're using collectively our resources end to end to build what we intend to build. And so there's some leveling factors in here. And again, all kinds of complexity that we could geek out on, which we're not going to today, but it really tells the picture of what we have to step back and explore something different. So a lot of folks want to talk about efficiency and productivity, and there's not as much of a conversation on value. But let's unpack efficiency a little bit. And I would like to invite everybody to go into Mentimeter. And if Neha, you could advance the presentation there. I want everyone to ask this question of yourself and do a bit of an experiment with our audience here today. What is your definition of efficiency? So what does efficiency mean to you? And I'll attempt
I
to.
have advanced the question there. I just want to confirm that people are seeing that question on their screen. What does efficiency mean to them?
This is a personal question, so I invite you to enter your opinion, your thought. This is anonymous, obviously, as you would have seen from the previous questions, so feel free to.
The first response is getting the right thing done at the right time.
Look like
you're not. Okay, you know what? I'll share my screen. Oh, okay. No, you're seeing it. Okay, no, you're seeing it there. Sorry.
I just need to refresh, I think.
Oh, that's interesting.
Using this link, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll refresh.
Achieving the right answer goal in the shortest amount of time with the lowest cost of resources.
No rework.
Doing things well to the expected quality standard the first time. Shocking.
Lots of good stuff in there.
You should have had Mike Holmes. Next time we'll have Mike Holmes as a guest panelist or something.
Good idea. Okay, I'll do another refresh here. Wait for
there are a lot more answers, lots of engagement there, Carla.
Okay, I just don't think my screen is somehow.
I don't know why it's supposed to be a live link. It's interesting how it's not.
Okay, well, what we'll do is, yeah, there's some more coming in here. So I think most folks have been able to enter some kind of a definition. I'm gonna keep going in unpacking this further. So we're asking, what does efficiency mean to you? And this, as you can guess, is not the first time any of us from the lean community have asked this question to unpack this conversation around efficiency. What we see in our industry, because of our silos, is we see two key themes popping up. The first theme is we often see this efficiency tug of war play out in our projects. So what's efficient for me? Efficiency is a very personal question. What is efficient for me may not be the same as what's efficient for you. And it may be entirely different as to what's efficient for us. So as we're working across our complex supply chains, this becomes a really important point. And as we look at the challenges of our industry and construction and all of these numerous stakeholders, it's becoming a strategic issue. So that's the first one, is efficiency is personal. How do we create an alignment on what efficiency is? And again, that's lean construction is trying to get us to reach out farther looking at value. The second point that we often get is a bit of additional comments around either efficiency or effectiveness. And really, we want to embody all of this. So doing tasks in an optimal way, and we want to be able to accomplish something with minimum expense of time and effort. We want to do things right the first time because we don't want to have to redo them. That's a waste. And we want to make sure that we're hitting the target value, the desired result successfully. So lean is trying to help with this efficiency conversation. And one of the things that I think has been very helpful in that, and one of my Carla's top favorite books is This is Lean, Resolving the Efficiency Paradox, Nicholas Modig's book. If you haven't read it and you're interested in lean, you really need to read it because it'll help with the appropriate paradigm of what this stuff is all about for lean in general and inside your organization, as well as for project delivery. And so here's what this grid tells us. So if you look at this picture here, along the y-axis, we've got resource efficiency, or the focus of capacity utilization, if you will. How are we at maximizing, utilizing the time of people, or it could be equipment? That's along the y-axis. On the x-axis, we have flow efficiency, which is from a customer's perspective. So how fast, if you will, how efficient are we, sorry, not how fast, how efficient are we at delivering the customer value from the time we start to the time we've achieved that value? And so we have this paradoxical kind of tug and pull going on as we have multiple stakeholders in construction trying to make their resource efficiency work really well, but yet we're trying to achieve a target value for our owner, our collective customer, the owner and end user. And so we have this kind of a balancing act that's going on. Part of what we're seeking here in lean construction is we're trying to find that lean state of being. And our goal is we don't want work waiting for workers or workers waiting for work. And so all of our techniques and tools, which are all an integral part of what we're doing in Lean, are targeting that achievement. That's what we're after. But what is really unique to our industry is we've got more variation and waste to contend with just because of our complexity of our supply chain. So this quest for efficiency is really sets the stage for how we think about our journey in Lean construction. And although we may not want to think about our projects in this way, we have dynamics that might look like this, that may be about, we have different camps, we have people that are maybe not playing on the field, we have individuals who are not being safe or playing their own game with their own ball. We have all kinds of things going on. So we may not want to recognize this is the case, but many of our projects have these dynamics going on, reinforced by contracts that are by their very definition creating these dynamics. Now, obviously, we want the construction play to flow, and that's what we're after. And I've mentioned contracts a number of times, but really Lean design and construction is agnostic to the contract type. It should be. There are different contracts that do provide the best grounds for fertile ground for Lean to grow. Lean construction, or as we also say, Lean design and construction, because that is implied. So I wanted to state that to call that out. Here's the tenets, the 6 tenets of Lean construction that have been identified by the Lean Construction Institute. And I think they are very aptly put together for what our complexities are. So the first one at the top you can see is optimize the whole. This is really about, speaks to that flow efficiency. We're optimizing the whole project. What's best for project? How do we synchronize everything to ensure we're best for project? Making sure we have a focus on removal of waste. We don't need to rework things. We don't want negative iterations of design. We want to focus on process and flow always. And we're all focused on the generation of value from the customer's perspective. And because there's no such thing as a perfect plan, believe it or not, there's no such thing as a perfect design right out of the gate from one person. We're all about continuous improvement, and we're trying to figure out how to make it better and take those learnings and plug it back into what we're doing and course correct and deal with that variation along the way in an adaptive kind of manner. So Lean project delivery with those tenets in mind is really trying to make that come alive. And at the core of it, the most important tenet is respect for people, as Neha has already called out. Respect for people is paramount. It was paramount in Lean Origin and Toyota Way, and it's even more critical in Lean construction. It shouldn't matter what role anybody is in, whether they're sweeping the floor or whether they are running a company. They should be respected as a person, and they should be, we should be tapping into their knowledge and understanding from their role, and expanding and developing that capability to maximize innovation in different ways. And so Lean project delivery is trying to harness all of this through an organized implementation of Lean principles and tools, which combined helps us to allow a team to operate in unison to create this optimum flow of work, which is in the best interest of the holistic project. So that's what Lean construction is all about, Lean design and construction. And there's a bunch of tools, but as you can guess by the way that I've been sharing information here today, it's not only about the tools. One of the most important unique tools to Lean construction is the last planner system that Glenn and Greg developed. And it is an adaptive agile project management technique that thankfully is, those techniques are being recognized in the latest incarnation of the revision of the Project Management Institute body of knowledge. There's a lot more that's adaptive, agile, and recognizing how critical that is for our project management world. So this fits in that vision beautifully. This is based on pull. It's very much about iterative planning, and the detail that we spend and invest in planning is done closer to the time of activity, not detailed planning 5 years out, because it's going to change by the time we get there. It is an engagement process. It is about social calibration is the way I like to talk about it. It's designed into the process itself. We have to have that engagement and ensure that we're calibrated on workload leveling across all of our trade partners that are involved in a given project, and as well on the design side, all of the consultant parties that are involved. It's very much integrating, promoting learning and continuous improvements along the way as well. So Susan's going to get into more about the techniques and tools and how that works in the project delivery environment. But I wanted to change course a little bit on you to kind of get into a closing here. To really achieve this higher performance that we're talking about and what Lean construction is intended to help and improve this productivity and efficiency picture, I have a question for you. So I want to know your opinion on how much you think culture matters. So I'm coming out of left field. going to ask you about culture after talking about all this stuff in lean construction. So going to Mentimeter again, and Neha will advance the presentation. I will attempt to share the live screen.
The presentation is advanced, Carla.
So if you could put your opinion on where you see how much does culture matter? Does it not matter? Does it absolutely matter? We have a strong 10 showing up. Wow.
Yeah, that's a 9.9. It matters 9. Like if it's unfortunate you have to refresh your screen. I'm sorry about that. That's a good learning for next time. We'll improve on it next time. But there's 15 people responded so far. It's like 9. We're at a 9.8. So.
9.8. There we go.
Yeah.
So coming out strong out of the gate. I'll wait for a few more, but we don't talk about culture and this soft stuff enough. It's seen as soft, and frankly, I'm tired of talking about hard and soft skills. I believe we need to talk about it as human skills and technical skills. And so I'm going to just continue on because I'm sensitive to time here. In terms of culture, culture matters, period. And whether or not we think it's an 8, 9, or 10, it's still up there. So I'm very pleased to see that from our audience today. The reality is culture is critical. We know we want it. We know it matters. I'm not sure we spend enough time really being active about engaging people and helping to create the culture that we want. And so I like to look at culture as how we behave when no one's looking. And this really shows to me how important it is to really think about lean construction is not a set of tools. These methods are social technical. This is about connecting with people so that we can align together to achieve that value. We have a complex supply chain. Alignment is what we're talking about here. So this is very much a social technical process. It's not tools in a tool bag. It's an integrated approach and strategy that involves and implicates people along the entire way. And I think culture is just so critical. I'm going to add another point here. The left picture is a starling murmuration, which is a flock of birds that fly in this intricate pattern that if you come from a farm, you'll see fly out of the field and behave like this. And each bird in that murmuration is responding to 7 other birds around them. And so they're adapting in a very agile manner to fly and move as they do. And I think there's something really special about cultures that have that kind of adaptiveness. In the same breath, I'd like to also highlight that we have on the right side here what we need in many of our practices, which is a tightly wound synchronicity, much like a clock. So we have gears that are not hardwired, they're tied together in terms of their movement and execution. And we actually need this balance in lean. We need to have the best of an adaptive, agile, innovative, creative, collaborative kind of culture alongside synchronization, coordination, and waste-free execution. And we see this play out in our project journeys. We see this, we see different tools and techniques that help with different aspects of this in lean construction, but it's all about feeding, fueling, and getting the best out of talent and people and helping this culture to move forward, which implies that we're all exploring some new territory, some new habits. It's triggering change and the creation of some different things. And it's very much that continuous improvement mindset, which is about that basic Toyota way lean, which is plan, do, check, study, and act and adjust. So that is that mindset that we want to have baked in. So there's things in lean that need to help us in that regard, because we need to all be part of this making the change happen and adopting and integrating it into our companies and into our projects. Those that experience lean go on a maturity journey, and whether it's a company or project. And so this is about a journey that we're on, continuous improvement along the way, and we're simultaneously trying to improve the work as well as develop people along the path. So the only reasons why I see that are typical reasons why I hear we don't do lean is this. And I don't think we're in a position anymore in our world in this day and age where we can think like that. I believe much like why should we be healthy and build a healthy lifestyle, we should be trying to do lean. It's not about a business case or why should we do lean anymore. It's really, can you afford not to? It's about a higher performance of how we function. And so I leave you with that in lean design and construction implied, that this is a competitive strategy that's underway already. There's lots of moving pieces and parts. Susan's going to elaborate further. I just want to leave you with lean creates an increase in value first and foremost. That's the focus. It's about value. We reduce waste and we're smoothing out the workflows while developing and engaging our talent. So thank you very much, and I'll pass it over to Susan.
So thank you, Carla, for that lead in. And I'm going to start from the beginning here. Hopefully you can see my screen. Yes, traditional projects, I often say we're so busy mopping the floor, we forget to turn off the faucet. So that's a pretty constant problem with traditional projects. And I always think Dilbert is the best at looking at corporate snafus. Wally says he's made no progress on your project because I was waiting to ask you some questions. She says you could have emailed me, texted me, or stopped by my desk. He said, I'm just not that invested in your success. Unfortunately, that seems to be how we feel our project team members feel a lot. And according to the Construction Managers Association of America, an owner survey said that their largest concerns were change orders with no good idea of why they had to pay them, a lack of innovative ideas, and unclear design documents. And I think we can agree that even 6 years later, that these are all the same problems. You know, our risk is really high. 70% of projects are delivered late and 73% over budget. You know, customers aren't satisfied, teamwork is unreliable, but we seem to have accepted this as business as usual. And I think that really has to do with our fragmented industry. When I was studying project management for my MBA, they said in a textbook, 50% of problems are due to unclear definition of scope and goals. How many times do we have to bring back decision-making, go back to the start and figure out if what we're doing is what needs to be done? And the Beck Group also said that project managers spend 50% of their time, half their time, in construction, finding, fixing, and documenting errors. And I really think that has to do with the fragmentation of our work. So if an end user wants to have a certain control in his lab, he's got to go to the owner, whatever structure he has to do to get there. And they come to the architect, who has a mechanical engineer, and they have an idea. It goes to the general contractor, it goes to his mechanical sub, it goes to the control supplier, it bounces back to the mechanical sub in some sort of fashion, and nothing gets lost in this big game of telephone, right? And multiply that by every system that you have to put into your building with a 2-inch thick specifications book. With lean, we want to think about it differently. First, who are our stakeholders? It might not be obvious. There might be people in the community, people with veto power and influence, and what they want and how much of the budget they get. What is their value proposition? Why are they doing this in the first place? Lean has to start from value and not just the elimination of waste. So if we know what their value is, what are the criteria, technical or programmatic requirements to get there? And we haven't even drawn anything yet. We want to know, what are you trying to do in that lab? What is the space like? What are you doing? And what are the technical requirements? What are the humidity? What's, you know, do you need a gathering space? And then we start doing design sets, hopefully with our trade partners, so we know how much it costs, what's the latest available, and how to build it. Milestones tell us where we have to be to make our schedule. The workflow tells us how we're going to reach those milestones efficiently, and we want to learn along the way. And I really want to emphasize how important it is to start this in the design phase. Within the first 10% of design, which is often an architect talking to himself, 70% of project costs, scope, and environmental impacts are already determined. You've got your massing diagram, your orientation, your materials, daylighting ideas. You've got a lot in that 10%. And what we really want to do when the ability to control cost is high and innovation is high, but the cost for design changes is quite low. In an integrated project, whether that's design, build, or IPD, integrated project delivery, we want to have that front end loaded in the design phase, because that's where the value comes. If you have, somebody had a question about how it relates to sustainability. I had a good friend, Adam Cohen, who is a passive house builder and also a lean practitioner. This has to do with how everybody works together to make that building. And also it determines how expensive that building is. One thing we don't think about Prevention through integrated design. 22 to 60% of all construction accidents, it's sometimes hard to tell, originate in design. You know, my favorite as an architect is how do we place lights and other features in stairwells? We don't even think about it. We put it on the reflected ceiling plan. How are they going to build it? And, you know, OSHA, which is our safety health administration, says that most fatal accidents involve falls, being struck by objects, or caught between objects. And that includes having very unsafe access. We try to paper that over with administrative controls, changing the way people work. And Last Planner is kind of at that level, or PPE. But what if we eliminated the risks by changing the design and avoiding features that create these hazards? That's really the key. And I want you to think about that. And if it's safer to build, it's easier to build, it's faster to build, and that makes it cheaper to build. We tend to see speed and safety and cheapness and safety as being opposed. They don't have to be under lean. So what are the benefits of lean? Dodge did a survey with the University of Minnesota, and they looked at serial builders, so owners who completed 5 or more capital projects in 3 years. And they had 162 projects identified by owners as best or typical versus their most important factors, schedule and budget performance. So which are what, you know, really makes or breaks a project in the end. So the benefits of lean: for using a lot of lean methods, you're 2 times more likely to complete under budget and 3 times more likely to complete ahead of schedule. Another thing you'll notice is that your overtime goes down. I was famous as an architect for not doing overtime. And the superintendents that I've coached on the job site said, wow, you know, I come in at 6 in the morning and I don't have 10 foremen waiting outside my door. And I can sit and I can think and I can plan the work ahead. And they start getting a much better balance in life. And as the workflow improves, they can find other improvements. So lean practices, and hopefully if this webinar series continues, we'll talk about all of them. You know, co-locating together. And, you know, with COVID, it's difficult. We have to do it online, but that's important. Something called target value design, which we now refer to as delivery because that goes straight through construction. I'll talk about later. How do we use prefab and modularization? Continuous estimating. Don't tell me in 3 months I'm 2 million over budget and then we have to value engineer all the good stuff out. Let's get 1 to 2 week increments of where I'm going with the cost, and help me with that. Onboarding, BIM, A3 thinking, and of course, the old standby, the Last Planner system. So this is the house that Lean built. Target value delivery is that umbrella. We define value, we steer to targets in design and construction. We co-locate cross-functional teams. And with set-based design, we really want to explore a universe of options before we commit. People are worried that that will take too much time. Actually, we end up gaining a lot of knowledge in less time, and we can make better selections. So we use the Last Planner system and undergirds it all, of course. When do we need to make those decisions? We can use A3s to document problems and opportunities and make selections of our different systems, and choosing by advantages. That's how you make sound, timely decisions that stick with multiple stakeholders, considering a lot of factors. And Last Planner undergirds all of it. Traditionally, this is more our org chart. It's also a process diagram. So think how we try to get quality here. Maybe my structural engineer will propose with my aesthetic judgment, structural system. We'll throw it over the walls of the general contractor. He breaks up the set, sends it to his subs. If his steel subcontractor doesn't really want to build that way, he might come up with a different suggestion. So he sends it to the contractor who stamps it. Yes, I've seen it. I believe this is the correct, you know, this meets the requirements. They send it to the architect. I should look at it as well with dimensions and other things like that, to the structural engineer. All these different steps, these different inspections, waste and lean, are meant to make sure we get the right thing. But what it really does is it kind of segments the work. And so many times I think the sub it goes right through the contractor to the structural engineer, who's usually a junior member of the team still. This is a famous detail. I use this a lot. This is the Kansas City Hyatt Walkway disaster. So you had 2 wings of a hotel with an atrium roof above. And there were 2 walkways suspended above each other by steel rods from the atrium roof. And the steel sub didn't want to thread the rod all the way to the higher walkway, so he proposed the second detail. This second detail not only puts 2 holes through the most weakest part of the beam, but it also hangs the second walkway from the first. This got through all of those different checks and balances. Nobody noticed it. Soon after opening, they had a tea dance. The walkways were full, the lobby was full, and they suffered a shear failure. So it ripped from its supports, the walkways. And in America, we suffered our worst structural accident ever, I think, over 100 dead. Now, usually our mistakes aren't that severe. Think about the curtain wall, right? The curtain walls always leak. If you're going to get sued, that's usually what it's for. And this detail is a manufacturing detail. I might not even be using Conair, but it's in my documents. We'll get the cheapest curtain wall installer that's an approved equal. And if that doesn't necessarily align with my structure, maybe the structure can waver a ½ inch and it's fine, but they need a ¼ inch tolerance. And you'll find that over stories that they may conflict. And we didn't really think about how we're going to attach it because everybody is fragmented. So we say buildings leak at the conjunction between contracts, and that's true. And our mechanical electrical systems, you know, paint colors, daylighting systems, all of these affect each other. But often our mechanical systems engineers don't even get started till I've stopped and frozen the floor plan. So that gives me very little knowledge of what's going on. And it's all a black box. I don't know why he designed what he did. We all put it in one Revit model, and then we look for conflicts of dimension. I have literally had a mechanical and electrical engineers work in the same office. My consultants, they got in the same car, they came to my office in the same meeting, and I had to tell the electrical engineer to give the mechanical engineer power to his pumps. That's not what we want to do. How can we reimagine this? If we have all trades participating in design, in that integrated upfront, and we're doing a target value delivery, we usually like to divide into clusters, and each of these clusters actually gets a price too. So we're haggling about price, and we can look in the structural cluster. And these are cross-functional teams. Now, how might we reimagine this detail? The steel subcontractor could say, you know what, I don't like this detail. And what's really funny is what they noticed after the accident, that even the first detail could only support about 60% of the weight by code. So what they could have said is, you know, I don't like this detail. I can't construct it very well. He could have come up with several different options. The engineer could have done the calculations on the spot. The architect could have approved it, and you can move that straight into your documents. You don't even need submittals now. And you know what you're doing. I mean, this is such a minor detail, but so major in the end. Or the enclosure cluster. Let's say we already had the curtain wall installer. We could do some modeling. What kind of construction makes this most energy efficient and keeps the outside in, or outside out? How can we attach this to structure? And they can actually come up with a bunch of details, which over a high rise would be really important. And that same team, with all the trades participating and engineers, can set the target cost. And you'll notice this curve, it goes up, you know, as we start really discussing what we want, and then it curves and it goes down to meet that target cost that everyone agrees to. And that's a benchmark where we're really trying to meet something. And instead of that curve that goes up in traditional, this is very common in target value delivery. And how do we plan our work together that can happen? The pointy-haired boss says, you didn't finish your assignment by the deadline. Wally says, it doesn't matter as long as one other employee is also late, because a project can't move forward until everyone does their tasks. He says, wait for it. And his employee says, you know how I was supposed to finish that thing? This is how we feel in construction. And I don't have enough time to go through this, but reliable promising is really important. I can sit through hours of meetings and never hear one person make a commitment. So did the customer prepare before making the request? Did we negotiate if the performer has the time, materials, energy, knowledge to do the work? So many times our subordinates run off to do the work and we're left wondering, did they understand what I wanted? You perform, you hand something over, and we want to know if we actually met the conditions of satisfaction. There was a baker coupling arrived on site at a water infrastructure project. They couldn't unwrap it and rewrap it. They didn't have the materials or equipment. So they just put it aside. 6 months later, they unwrapped it and they realized that it was not built to specifications. And it was a 6-month lead item. They did not declare satisfaction. And that was a problem. Listen to language. This is the people side. Nothing happens in human endeavor except through conversation. People will say, yes, maybe I can, I hope to, perhaps I will. It's in the schedule, which is a statement, not a commitment. Or I plan to do the structural calculations next week. What if he'd said, I will do them? Now he's going to stop. Now he's going to think, well, can I actually do them by next week? What do I need? Do I have the information? And that is a true commitment where I say, I will get the windows here. If somebody gives me information, it was conditional. No, I can't. And do we need temporary enclosures to start drywall? That's never the end of it, a no. But we want people to be able to say no and tell us what can happen. And I can't answer now, but we'll get back to you by Thursday. That's a promise because they said by Thursday. This is everything that undergirds the last planner system, right? These are 5 levels of conversation. We have the big boulders at the top, maybe 10 to 20 major milestones we have to hit to establish the promise of the project, whether it's 6 months or 6 years. We take one of those milestones and we look at the phase and we bring, maybe it's like 3 months worth of work. We bring all the trades together or designers and say, how do we actually sequence our work? It's a collaborative thing. The last planner is actually the foreman who is assigning men and materials. So that phase plan, we're going to work together to reach a milestone. Then weekly, we're going to open up the window on that phase plan. We're going to look at tasks in about 5 or 6 week range and say, if we were to start those tomorrow, what would start it? What would stop us? Information, materials, what kind of constraints might be in our way? And we get promises to remove those constraints. So by the time we look at that week, we're planning our week. This is where I'm going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're going to nail that week and there's nothing in our way. And then every day we're going to status that to make sure we're doing our weekly work plan. And we're going to realize if we can't do the work as planned, why not? Right? And then we're going to fit that weekly work plan in our 6-week look ahead, which matches the phase, which is going to hit our milestones. So we are getting more granular and going up and down that scale. I like to flip it. Makes more sense from a structural perspective. No matter what your planning is, if it doesn't reach the guy turning the wrench in the field, it's all a waste. We want to support the people doing the work. And that's really, really, really important. So this type of reliability, being able to hand things off and know and let people do what they want to do, where they want to do it, when they want to do it. So, I talk to trades and I say, aren't you frustrated when you can't do what you want to do when you want to do it? So what's our reliability? We're going to go back to the Mentimeter. And if you had to make 10 promises for next week's work on a project, think of a current project. What would your reliability be? How many of those tasks would you actually manage to get done?
We're at 7.7 so far, Susan, on average for everybody.
Ooh, that sounds like, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how they go.
We're down to a 6. Do you want me to?
There
we
goes.
go.
I can refresh.
Yeah, you can hit refresh.
Yeah, so 6.6. So y'all think you're going to get at least 6 to 7 done out of the 10. 6.8. All right. Wow, we got some people who are really excited to get work done. In truth, when we first looked when they were first developing Last Planner, what they realized is the industry data was literally at 54%. These were projects that were on budget, on schedule, that Greg and Glenn looked at, and they were only getting done half of what they thought they would be every week. So we're baking that into the cake. And the last question I want to ask is why? So back at Mentimeter, if you can't get tasks done as planned, what's stopping you? What are your common issues that are stopping you?
And just because it's not just because it's a construction webinar, I do have the second question up. And I do have the profanity filter on in case you wanted to try it out.
Oh, this is construction, so profanity is allowed. Changes from field supervision staff. Being overly optimistic.
Someone did test the profanity filter.
Necessary information based on others' commitments, right? We don't know. Predecessor
You can
task.
refresh that, Susan. There's a lot more engagement.
All right, let's put it in there. What keeps you from fulfilling? Interruptions. Other commitments take priority. Too many projects, materials, supply chain, right? They just don't get it to us on time. Unreliable commitments. That's basically everything goes under that. Supply chain is not working. Sheer staff exhaustion, overwhelm. Yeah, like I said, there's a mood called hysterical industriousness. It gets in the way of making changes. We're so overwhelmed that we can't change. It's that, I keep mopping the floor, but I don't turn off the faucet. But yes, materials don't arrive. These are all important things that happen all the time. And we don't want those to keep happening in a lean job. We don't want to get our lessons learned at the very end and finding out at the very end what's happening. So if we go out of here, we asked 40 superintendents what they thought about this question. And these are what they came up with. And, labor not available, site conditions, change orders, approval delays, RFI delays, weather, material, scope of work is unclear. All of these things. And there are so many techniques, the 5 whys, root cause analysis, where we don't just let these fester. We collect the reasons. Why couldn't you get your work done today? Not to hit you over the head, but to say, okay, if we're not getting design information on time, let's find out why that is. And let's remove that. Let's remove that impediment so it doesn't keep happening. So that is the end. And we got a little bit carried away with information. But if anyone has any questions, I should have said, just look at the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. You can open that up and ask any question as you go along. And I think, or in the chat, I guess, as well. But I think if you look in the Q&A, we'll be able to answer them more quickly.
That's right. So I just want to introduce Neil and David. If you turn your camera on, I know you're up for asking questions. So I kind of wanted to do that. We do have a panelist, a guest panelist here right now. Neil is our guest panelist. And David, once you turn your camera on, that'll be my indicator that you're interested in being the next guest panelist. So I'll wait for that indicator. So, oh, there you are, David. Let me just add you to the spotlight. There we go. So maybe I'll start with Neil. Neil, do you have a question do you want to start with? So just do a brief introduction for yourself, Neil, before you start talking, and Dave, you as well. Go ahead.
Sure. Hi, Susan. Hi, Carla. Hi, everybody. My name is Neil Milner. I'm about a 20 plus year mining engineer with experience in operations and projects. I'm the owner of Foreign Mining Consulting. And certainly in operations, I had a lot of experience with lean principles and strategies. However, in the project world, we generally follow a front-end loaded engineering process. And to me, they're often conflicted, right? Lean doesn't necessarily allow for a lot of risk management or risk management in terms of, over-resourcing staff, over-resourcing material. Early deliverables are not necessarily, or do not necessarily lend themselves to lean. How do you balance that, or how do you change the culture of those project people like me who rely on the thorough process to try and deliver projects on time and on budget?
Okay. Do you want to take it, Susan, or I've got a thought?
Risk is important. What have you run into in the past, and what could you run into in the future? We love to do risk matrices, and honestly, you don't need to necessarily say how likely this is to occur. We want to know what's the impact if it occurs. And it's great to get a project team together in the beginning and say, let's look at every risk you're worried about and how might we either head that off at the pass or mitigate it if it happens. I think lean really does look at risk because that's part of variation, right? It's part of that variation that all of a sudden, boom, you have to look at something else when you were planning to do this. So risk mitigation and understanding and really understanding what you worry about is really important. And lean has been tried in so many industries. It kind of reminds me of a doctor in the OR. He said, well, what we do now is everybody introduces themselves to each other. And so we know who they are and everybody gives us one concern, right? I'm concerned that if you nick the artery that's so close to that doctor, we're going to run out of blood and we need to have O positive blood, you know. I mean, these sorts of things up front actually have an amazing effect on risk, avoiding it and making it happen.
Yeah, and I would add, totally agree, and I would add to that I think one of the misunderstandings of lean has been the just-in-time manufacturing and having just enough inventory to serve what you have to immediately make. The whole risk process includes buffering, and it includes understanding your supply chain and where the opportunities are and making sure that you are set up for success in whatever it is you're doing. So it involves all of that as well. So I do think that that's part of what you need to factor into your project management.
Cool. Dave, do you have a question from the municipal sector? And maybe if you could do a brief introduction of yourself.
Hi, excellent. Thank you, Neha, and thank you to Carla and Susan for a great presentation. I really enjoyed it. The slides were really informative, and hopefully I can access the recording somehow and maybe share it with others. My name's David Shalstead. I'm the Director of Engineering for the municipality of the City of Greater Sudbury. And I find, I was wondering if you can give me some comments on shifting culture to more of the lean environment. And lots of what I have trouble with is getting buy-in, because as a public sector, we have to have low tenders, we have to show low prices, and it's hard to justify the value in hiring contractors and the design team all together at one time, so they can influence the design to get a higher value product at the end. But it's hard to convince like procurements and purchasing bylaws that we have and go through there to justify that that's the direction that we should be moving.
Yeah, I feel exactly what you're saying. I work currently with the City of Lloydminster on their lean journey, a citywide lean journey, where we're uncovering all of these different stones, and that's also one of them. I mean, as a municipality, you have a role to best utilize taxpayer dollars, let's say it like that, in whatever it is that you're doing. And so, yeah, the procurement methods play a dual role of trying to manage the regulatory responsibilities and make sure that we're being as responsible as possible with the funding that we are working with. And so there is a quest for lowest dollar. I think it is an evolution of understanding that needs to happen around what's that total value equation. And therefore, what are the quality-based selection criteria that we also need to factor in? And so I think we really need to bring that language and that intentionality into our procurement processes. And the envelope is getting pushed more and more on having more collaborative mechanisms in our contracts and having procurement be more receptive to quality-based elements, so that we're not seeing rework loops. We're not seeing the ultimate value that of whatever it is we're building, whatever capital project we're talking about here, to make sure that that's addressed. So it is an evolution. It is a culture, and it starts with the value, the ultimate true north of why we're here, to build a municipality and a community, and how do we translate that into the appropriate process adjustments.
And it certainly is tough when your laws say you must bid out 3 times. But in America, some of them get around that by saying, you know what, we are going to bid it out, but we're going to make you come as a team, a design build team, and we're going to judge between the teams and see how collaborative the teams are. So I've seen that work as well.
Yeah, and then in play in Canada.
Yes, sorry. And it's been done in the US, even for some of the stricter public bidding laws.
So we are at our time, but I'm going to continue the Q&A. So bye-bye to everybody that
Sure.
can't stay any longer. Are you, I just have one question from the audience. What is the best way to get team buy-in on lean principles, especially when you want to continue doing things? This is from Matt Harker. The way, like, you know, it's like, we've always done it this way. So how do you switch up from that?
Yeah, fair enough. I really think that you need to open a new conversation with your team. There are teams that don't have conversations together about what is it that we're doing here, what is our value, and what is it that we have an opportunity to work on to make it better. I really think we need to start those conversations. Sometimes we don't need to make it any more complicated than just do it. JDI, which is a famous term in lean, just do it, just have the conversation and be open to the team decision on maybe we make some improvements in some different ways. So I really think lean in the maturity journey is about one step forward at a time, and it's a small, simple step, and being receptive to that conversation is a starting point.
Yeah, and I think I think there was a video of somebody dancing that went viral once, where a guy was dancing all crazy at a concert, and somebody else showed up and started dancing with him, and pretty soon everybody was up. Think about the person who is leading or following you. You know, this really has a lot to do with peer pressure, because people don't want to be the one who makes it so that the job doesn't get done. If you can find those people who are really fascinated by this, bring those people in and let them help you work. You know, followers are absolutely as essential as leaders. And it really has to be what bugs you. You know, that's what we start off with. What bugs you? We want to remove all those things that get in your way, that make you crazy. So you can do what you want to do, where you want to do it, when you want to do it. And you have to have that enthusiasm. One word of caution: if you're going to do last planner system and your superintendent on the job site is not interested, that really kills the whole thing. So you've got to have those key people really interested and willing to do new things. And we do a lot of training first off with the whole team. It's a lot of fun. We do a lot of simulations. We help them build a Lego house in two different manners, one with the last planner, one without. And we really let them understand how this is us helping you. Understand that the mood of the team is important. We are an adversarial profession, and we need to get over that hump where people aren't holding back or sandbagging and saying, I need 5 days instead of 3, just because they are not trusting the team. So, you know, if you can't get anywhere with, say, a conversation for action, back up and say, okay, have we really looked at all the possibilities for solving this problem? If you can't get anywhere, then back up and say, okay, why is this relationship not working? Because if you don't have a good relationship, lean just falls off the rails, and as do any project. And we tend to want to get done and go over that and just hammer it, just do this. The other thing I would say is start small, even if it's not perfect. People who co-create an answer are more involved in implementing it. And if they can find ways to improve, you're going to be here a long time. Just find ways to improve over time and look at what's really pissing them off.
Yeah.
Any parting thoughts, David, Neil, any questions you guys have right now? Sorry, we're just over time, and so I didn't want to go over 2:10. You know,
yes, and
we can hang out and stay here like you know, till closing time.
Yeah. I think it's always best to be left wanting a little more, especially when it's you know, you're planning a series of these webinars. So you gave us a lot to think about. Thank you, Susan and Carla, and I look forward to the next webinar.
I just wanted to highlight the video that Susan spoke about. I think it got put into the chat a couple times. Yeah. I believe that lean construction already has a number of people up crazy dancing, so to speak. and I think we're at the tipping point where there's more people realizing that there's something cool going on there, and we really need to be a part of it. So I think we're at a point, that's part of what that video is showing as well, is it's showing the tipping point where their people are rushing to be a part of it rather than looking and judging. And I think we're very stuck in our status quo. We're very stuck in the way we've always done things. It's a risk management unto itself to stay the same and keep it, keep it all from changing. But we need to be asking more and more, why can't we make it better? Why are we doing what we're doing? Who are we doing it for? And it's that value for our end customer user. And so that's really at the heart of this thinking, is making sure that we're being that externally outward minded, focused on what we're doing and why. It's for the customer, and that's what the value is all about. It's not just cost value, it's multidimensional. That's what we're doing it for.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for attending. We will reach out to you via email on designing the next webinar, and you are automatically signed up for the next webinar as it is a series. So you will be getting, it'll be in about 4 to 6 weeks. It's about 6 weeks. I think we've determined the date, but I haven't really put it out there. And thank you very much for your time. Once again, it's very difficult to get to schedule an hour into people's days, even though it feels like we got lots to do during COVID. We don't have lots to do, but we do. Everyone's super busy. I think the expectations have just gone up. Susan, any last words from you?
I'll see you all hopefully at the next one. We'll do a deep dive in some more of these concepts, and would love to maybe spend some more time answering questions. So let it percolate in your brains.
Sounds lovely. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.